Another big week in the fight against the coronavirus. Moderna says its vaccine is nearly 95% effective. Let's welcome back a pandemic expert, Dr. Dena Grayson. Dr. Grayson, last week, Pfizer also announced the vaccine that is pushing, I heard the recent number, almost 95% as well. This is good news.
Oh, Eric, this is fabulous news. I mean, we thought these first generation vaccines may only be about 60 to 70% effective. Knowing that both of these vaccines now are in the range of 95% effective is tremendous news. I think this is great news for every American and really great news for the human race.
So how does it play out, Doc? I mean, I know there's going to be some sort of like first responders and the most at-risk groups will get access to it at first. When will the general population, I'm hearing first quarter 21?
Well, Eric, we haven't heard a clear plan from the Trump administration on how the vaccine will be distributed. The first step, of course, is we're still awaiting what's called emergency use authorization by FDA. I do expect Pfizer's vaccine to get that, along with Moderna's, assuming their data holds out. But yes, right now, Pfizer is saying they've got enough vaccine doses right now to vaccinate around 12.5 million Americans in 2020. They're obviously going at breakneck speed, trying to manufacture more doses, and that will start to roll out next year. But I would not anticipate we'll have enough doses to dose every American in the first quarter, but that will be over the next, say, first, second quarter, maybe even the early third quarter next year.
I'm glad you brought up the Trump administration because both Moderna and Pfizer have both been at least somewhat part of Operation Warp Speed, which actually helped this thing move along a lot quicker.
Well, Moderna they were actually had their research and development bankrolled by the U.S. government. Now, Pfizer did not. Pfizer took on that risk on their own. They were in negotiations with the government and agreed to a contract for the government to pay for the vaccine. The great news for Americans is that the vaccine should be free to Americans. So whether or not you have insurance is greatness.
Hold on, we've been friends a long time. But if you give Pfizer a built-in $2 billion customer base, it's a lot easier to take the risk on producing the actual product.
But there's still, yes, there is. But guess what? They went through all of this expense, Eric. And if let's say the vaccine did not work, they would have to eat that cost for all the manufacturing, all of the clinical trials, and they were not bankrolled by the government. So they assumed a substantial amount of financial risk. Moderna did not. So it's not really the same thing.
Well, no, I'll give you that. But here's my point. It was just, I get beat up by the people who watch the show who hate me, when I say something like, well, it's very odd that 48 hours after the election, Pfizer announces that they came up with a 95% effective vaccine. Was it really that odd timing? Was it? Did they? I mean,
yeah. So Eric, this is all based on data, and in fact, how these trials work is they have what's called an independent data monitoring committee. These are people not affiliated with Pfizer. They're independent scientists and experts. And when they get the trigger to review the data, meaning they know who got the vaccine versus the placebo, so they are what we call unblinded. It's based upon a number of events, which in this case is the number of coronavirus infections, of COVID cases. So that happened on a Sunday. They reviewed the data. Pfizer themselves did not review the data. They were given the data by the independent data monitoring committee. So this is all just based on when these infections happen. So I don't think there's anything untoward going on here whatsoever. I think this is really, truly based upon the science.
Okay, fair enough. But I also like to give credit where credit's due. I believe, and by the way, I'm on the board of a pharma company, so it's not like this is all Greek to me. I'm on one of the most important things is getting the FDA to approve your trials, and sometimes it takes years for them to get that. With what's going on right now with this vaccine, these companies were offered some pretty rapid FDA approvals to go forward in their phase 2 and phase 3 trials. You got to give some credit to the Trump administration for that.
No, actually, you don't, Eric. Those emergency use. Hang on. Let's talk about facts. I have a lot of experience in this space, developing a therapeutic for Ebola several years ago. So actually, there is currently on the books and has been prior to the Trump administration something called emergency use authorization. Right. That's the path that these companies are going down with FDA. That's been in existence long before the Trump administration, and frankly, they had nothing to do with that.
All right. We'll agree to disagree. Once again, Dr. Dena Grayson, always good having you on, though. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.